Welcome everyone to the 2018 New Generations Forum, sponsored by the Rotary Club of St. Charles, along with the St. Charles Parish Public Schools system. We'd like to welcome each of you here tonight. We have several students from both Destrehan and Hahnville High Schools, along with some siblings and parents and school sponsors as well. I'd like to introduce a few folks in just a few moments, but before we do that, we're going to ask Miss Brianna Dominguez to come and lead us in our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Please bow your head. Father, thank you for allowing us to get together tonight. Thank you for giving the leaders and students of our parish this opportunity to discuss important concerns. We pray that during the meeting, we remember to stay open-minded. Please give the parish leaders the wisdom to guide this meeting smoothly. We pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. You may be seated. We have several special guests this evening, including our Interact sponsors from Destrehan and Hahnville High Schools. We have Miss Amy from Hahnville, along with Miss Hope as well, and Miss Marcella is here, and Miss Giovanna Giarelli as well. Thank you for being with us. And our honored guests, our forum members this evening, I'm going to allow each of them to introduce themselves briefly. We'll start on this side here.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here, and it's my honor to be invited back. My name is Lauren Lemon, and I'm one of the 3 judges in St. Charles Parish.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Larry Cochran. I'm St. Charles Parish President.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. Very proud of you students who have chosen to be here tonight. Felicia Gomez Walker, Superintendent of Schools in St. Charles Parish.
Good evening. My name is Austin Reeder, and I am the CEO at St. Charles Parish Hospital.
Good evening. I'm Captain Donnie Smith with the Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Champagne apologizes, but he couldn't be here tonight, so he asked me to fill in for him. So thank you for coming.
All right. Thank you for all being here this evening. The way that this works is we've got some questions that have been generated from the students, and my job tonight as moderator is to keep the conversation going, and we'll allow each of these folks to answer some questions that you have posed, and we may have time at the end for an additional question or two as well. We're thankful for the schools hosting this event. We'll start with Superintendent Gomez Walker. All of these students are high quality, looking to do their very best in school. What can they know, or what should they know as far as getting more information about college, taking the next steps? What resources are available, maybe from school counselors or some other areas that you'd like for them to be aware of?
Thank you for that question. First of all, the students have probably heard me say over and over again that we're not preparing you for graduation, we're preparing you for life after graduation. So I certainly appreciate the question about college applications and information about post-secondary. I'd like to ask you a question first. Last night at the Eddie Dufresne Community Center, Hahnville and Destrehan got together and hosted a college and career night. How many of you attended that event? Okay, that tells me that we need to publicize that and market that more, because at the college and career night at the Dufresne Center, there were universities from around Louisiana, but not only universities. In fact, I have a listing of those here. Career and technical training, also information on military and college and universities. And there were booths throughout the center where students and their parents were invited to go from booth to booth to get information on exactly what you asked for tonight, applications as well as entry kinds of things, information on financing. So it was certainly a well-attended event, but I certainly invite you to take advantage of that in the future. In addition to that, I will tell you that this past year at the high schools, there is a new counseling structure. And you probably are aware that students now are assigned to a counselor for 4 years, from their freshman through their senior year. And the intent of this type of structure for counselors is that so that counselors can build relationships with students, get to know the students that they are counseling, and also customize for you what you need in order to attend a college, a university, or some post-secondary organization. And finally, I'm going to put a plug in for something that we started last summer. It was the first time that we did this. It's called a Senior Transition Seminar. And so students that have just completed their junior year and going into their senior year would spend a full day getting information about how to fill out a college application, getting information on senior projects, getting information on financial literacy, how to organize all of the universities that you might want to attend, and how to compile information so that you can be prepared to apply during your senior year. So I'm putting a plug in for the Senior Transition Seminar for those of you that will be that have finished your junior year and going to your senior year this summer. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Superintendent. And I really like the idea of the counselor staying with the students throughout, and I know some positive impacts will be coming as a result of that. Mr. Reeder, thank you for being with us tonight, representing the hospital and industry, and I know all of these students want to make applications and go to college or go to trade school. How would you describe the healthcare industry as far as jobs and opportunities? Some of these folks may want to go directly into healthcare after pursuing more education. What's the atmosphere like in regards to healthcare as far as jobs, salaries, and good chances of landing a good job?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. There is a ton of opportunity in healthcare, and opportunities continue to grow in all aspects of healthcare, from tech type roles, and whether you're in a clinic supporting a clinic practice, or imaging techs, lab techs, up to physicians. We are constantly recruiting for really all areas of the hospital: nurses, physicians. Every aspect of the hospital hospitals continue to grow. And then here locally in St. Charles Parish, we continue to add services as well, which continues to add new jobs and new needs here locally to be able to provide some of those opportunities here close to home.
And those opportunities, I know, will continue to manifest themselves. The great thing about health and medicine is that people are living longer, and there's certainly a need for those services, and I'm sure it'd be a great opportunity. In addition to academics and work, the students I know are interested in activities and extracurricular and recreational activities. Mr. Cochran, thank you for being with us, representing St. Charles Parish. What would you want the students to know in regards to expanded recreation programs and maybe even some other types of developments along this great resource that we have, the Mississippi River?
Well, with recreation, we have done a number of things. When we first came into office, we started having meetings with all the different communities, along with the councilmen, to identify specific things. And some of the things that was identified was the fields. You know, we had to do more with the fields and all. We need to expand opportunities. We brought in volleyball and flag football for the youth. We also expanded opportunities for, I guess, the older folks, you know, my age and on up. You know, we do stuff all day long with people. And, you know, Rathbone Park, you know, that was something that came in, you know, we came in and kind of took the ball and ran with it, and that's become a very, very great park for that community. You know, along with working with the school board, we shared so much stuff, you know, and so we needed to get away a little bit and have our own types of fields and such like that. And we identified the spillway. The spillway for the whole parish is such a underutilized resource. You know, we have the Wetland Watchers Park out there. We don't have a very good way to get out there. You know, you hear the moms, they're going out there to bring the kids out there in the summer, and they're blowing out tires because of the type of rocks we're putting on the levee. So right now we're working with the Corps and state officials to try to get a path to the Wetland Watchers Park. It's a multi-million-dollar facility that we keep adding to, but there's no good way to get to it. We're also looking at different things within the spillway to expand, you know, biking and things like that. We also identified the different communities that needed fields. You know, St. Rose is one of them. We had a small field with IMTT. We're working with the sewage board who owns the property. Oddly enough, they own that whole expanse of property that that encompasses IMTT Field. So we're working with them to get all of that, but we can bring more things. The thing that resonated with us was we all need ball fields, we all need football fields, but we all didn't need, you know, a BMX track. You know, so we're going to try to do things like that, but like maybe the St. Rose area or the spillway or coming across the river to the Zalmans. We're currently working with the councilman out there to rehab that whole facility. So recreation has been near and dear to my heart and a lot of the councilman's heart. And we're working very, very hard to improve recreation as we move forward. You know, we keep talking about the levee. The levee is very important on the West Bank. But, you know, we have the resources there to finish the levee. It's time to start looking at things to improve quality of life, you know, because we've been so focused on the levee, we've kind of lost sight of other things. And recreation is one thing we really need to start concentrating on. We built the splash park on the East Bank some years ago, and we promised the people that we'd put one on the West Bank. I'm happy to say that we're going to have a splash park at the community center within this budget. You know, this budget is going to be one of quality of life type things. And also putting money within the general fund too, not losing sight of that. So as we move forward, you know, recreation is very, very important to the council and the administration.
And I know our students here and those viewing at home, they work hard at school, they enjoy some free time for sports and extracurriculars and going to parks and spillway and wetland watchers. And I know none of them would ever be out late past curfew, but there is a curiosity, I'm sure, for other folks, not these folks, but for why, Captain Smith, thank you for being with us, representing the Sheriff's Office. Why is the age of no curfew 17 instead of 16?
Well, before I answer that, let me ask a question to the audience first, especially for the students. Out of the students, who is 17 and older? Okay. And who is 17 or 16 and under? Okay. It's a good mixture. So there's no universal reason why. There's no universal number that says when a parent wants their child home. However, the American Academy of Pediatrics has come up with a number, and based on their studies over the years, they say that a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old should be home by 7 or 8 on a weekday and 8 or 9 on a weekend. And then from 14 to 16 would be 8 to 9 on a weekday and 10 to 11 on the weekend. So with that in mind, and because of puberty and things like that, as adolescents grow up, they have a lot of things on their mind. Their sleeping cycles, patterns are a little bit different. They tend to stay up a little bit later, sleep a little longer, and all of that has an adverse effect on your driving, your grades. So with that in mind, when they adopted the parish ordinance for curfew, it wasn't just a number for the sheriff to make up. It was a number based on medical research, and then provided that with the research of science with students to know what we think or what they think is best for them.
As far as curfew goes, I know some would think of that as what's the point, but it is in place for a reason. And I know on the grand scheme of things, curfew violation is not as drastic as some other items. But Judge Lemon, and thank you for being with us tonight, is representing the 29th Judicial District Court. Surely a curfew violation would not result in someone going before a jury, but how do you know when a jury is involved and not?
Thank you for that question. There's a lot of different, so in St. Charles Parish and in most parishes in the state of Louisiana, we have, our judicial districts are called general jurisdiction, where the judges in those districts handle all types of cases. Whereas in bigger parishes, like Orleans and Jefferson and Baton Rouge, they have specialty courts, and they have a juvenile court, and they have a family court, and a child support court, and criminal, civil. We handle all of those things. And so there's a different variety. If you come to my courtroom and spend a week with me, there's going to be something different every day of the week. Tomorrow I have child support court. Today I had criminal pretrial motions. Yesterday I had a custody case. And so every day there's something different. And so some of those cases have judge trials and some of those cases have jury trials, and it's a good question. Generally speaking, in civil matters, so we'll talk about civil and criminal. In civil matters, if the case involves possibly an award of $50,000, above $50,000, then you're entitled to have a jury. If it's $50,000 or below, it's a judge trial. And that's because of the expense and the cost of a jury, and they had to come up with a number. And so in a typical car wreck case, if the injuries are supported by evidence that the case may be worth $150,000, or in a situation where somebody has some major injuries, or a death case, that's going to go to a jury. But if it's less in value, then it goes before the judge. In criminal matters, it depends on what you're charged with. We have misdemeanors, which are cases that are more minor, where the charge for which you're being, the crime for which you're being charged is, the maximum sentence is less than a year. Those go before a judge. If it's more than that, it goes before a jury. So, you know, the big cases, the violent cases, the murder cases, the more violent or most drug cases are felonies, because the maximum sentence is more than a year. And so that's really the basic distinction. Juvenile cases, family law, custody in Louisiana, none of those are jury trials. In Texas, they do custody in front of a jury, which blows my mind. I'm not knocking Texas, but it's just hard to imagine a jury having to determine custody, because it's real specialized. But so that's the general concept of judge versus jury. Thank you.
And we certainly don't want to mess with Texas. I mean, that's.
I'm not trying.
And thank you for that response. And I'm thinking, Ms. Gomez-Walker, about how awesome these students are, and how they want to do the very best that they can, and they'll never violate curfew because they have to wake up so early in the morning to go to school. And some may even think of that as a misdemeanor, maybe even a felony that's being committed against them, that they have to wake up so early. I'm just kidding. But what do you want the students to know as far as the early morning starting of the school day?
This has been a question that has been contemplated for quite some time, because there is literature to support that adolescents should be starting school at a later time. So in order to make that decision, we can't just wave a magic wand and everybody goes to school later. Currently, we have 3 tiers. You may or may not know that. Tier 1 is the earliest, and high school students are in Tier 1. Tier 2 is in the middle, of course, and those are middle school students and 2 elementary schools. And then Tier 3, which is the very latest, which would be at school for approximately 8:45, those are the other elementary schools. Now, what you have to consider is when you move 1 tier back, then it affects all of the other tiers. And we have a lot to consider in moving those tiers back. First of all, do we want our youngest children, if we move everybody back, do we want our youngest children to be on the road after, say, 5 o'clock? In addition to that, as we look at it and we look at high school students have many, many, many extracurricular activities, athletics, band, music, all kinds of clubs. And so we also have to take into consideration that those after-school events would also put students coming home much later, and then there's homework involved. And I know that you are all very conscientious and you want to get that homework done. So I explain that to explain to you that a lot of things have to be considered before we determine a later take-in for high school students. But having said that, yesterday, this is pretty ironic, I was looking at one of the superintendent's journals, and I found this, and it's entitled, "School Start Times Matter." And it's exactly about the question that you asked. So we are not closing the door to this issue, but it will take a lot more consideration, a lot more data, a lot more input and feedback from many people in order for us to change that. So know that it's not yet. Thank you.
But maybe one day in the future. But who will have to wait and see. But there's always the question of why and trying to understand and make sense of things. Speaking of trying to understand, Mr. Reeder, I would like to ask you, and one of the questions that's been posed is, all these folks know about St. Charles Hospital and what it is and means in the parish, but what does it mean that it's now being managed by Ochsner? What exactly does that involve?
That's a really good question. I think in its simplest form, it's really the leadership aspect of the hospital. All of the leaders in the hospital work for Ochsner, so I'm an Ochsner employee, and in turn we manage the hospital. But there's a lot of other neat ways that through management we're able to help the hospital, whether it's being able to procure or purchase supplies and equipment at a lesser cost than a standalone hospital would. And I can tell you from experience, before I took this role, I was at East Jefferson General Hospital for 5 years, and I'm sure everybody's seen in the papers everything that's been going on with East Jeff, and sustainability as a standalone hospital is very, very tough. And a lot of that has to do with the price of supplies. And so being able to utilize the size of Ochsner to buy supplies at a lower cost helps as well. There's also a lot of different technology that Ochsner is able to provide to the hospital through telemedicine. So we have a cart in our emergency department that's basically a TV where a physician can come on the TV and talk to our patients and help to assist our emergency room physicians with making decisions, and then also provide additional physicians to the community. We've added a lot of different services over the past few years, whether it's orthopedic physicians, podiatry physicians, primary care physicians, and we have new services that we're going to continually be adding to the hospital. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we're able to provide through the management agreement with the hospital.
And another item they provide, you wouldn't know this because you're at school every day, but an awesome lunch at the cafeteria there at Osner, and they got a great little cafe, and it's very good. And Mr. Cochran will turn attention. What can we do, though, to bring more restaurants to the parish, more stores, maybe shopping like clothing stores, shoe stores, restaurants? What can be done to possibly generate more interest of businesses opening up here in the parish?
Expand the hospital.
Yeah, there we go.
The census plays a very important part in this. I'm going to use St. John as an example. St. John has a population of 325,000 people versus St. Charles, we have 52,000 people. So when a big chain store comes in, they look at a 1 mile radius, 3 mile radius to see if, you know, the population will support whatever they're trying to put there. And I'm going to go to St. John, Chili's restaurant on in La Place, everyone knows that one. Within a 1 mile area, there's 8,600 residents. 3 mile circle is 32,000 residents. So let's go to Rotolo's on Armand. We have 2,000 residents in 1 mile, and 3 miles we have 13,000. So that hinders us when we're trying to get these chain stores here. We were trying to get a Rouse's here not too long ago with the hospital was doing across the river. You know, they expanded
At the plantation.
plantation, yeah. And we were looking at working along with the developer to bring it, and we just couldn't get the numbers to work. You know, and that was a very good area because we got this great bridge, so it's accessible to all. We just couldn't get it to work. You know, when we identify, and the funny thing is, when we look at St. Charles versus St. John, we have more restaurants. It's mom and pop type restaurants. We do have more, you know, thanks to the hospital. And, you know, retail, we have more retail, believe it or not. But it's small on a smaller scale. You know, we look at St. John, they have the Home Depots, the Chili's, but they have the population to support it. My argument's always been the median income. St. Charles is higher, but then they go back to population. You know, in retail, we identify retail as motor vehicle and parts dealers, furniture and home furnishing stores, electronics, appliance stores. Building is material and garden equipment supplies, food and beverage stores, health and personal care stores, gasoline stations, clothing accessories, sporting goods, and general merchandise stores. So that's identified in retail. And, you know, dealing with we have a great economic development director here. Corey goes out and he really recruits some big companies. That's why it also plays a hand in like what's going on with Monsanto, what's going on over at Little Gypsy. That's all, you know, we're bringing jobs here, but we just don't have the land. Funny enough that, you know, I was looking the square miles in St. Charles Parish is 404 square miles versus St. John was 480-something square miles. So their population is based on the east bank of the parish. If you ride to St. John, they're still really rural on the west bank of the parish, and we're just the opposite over here. You know, but we're going to continue to work to bring the big chains here. It's just hard to convince them with the population.
And, you know, you think about population, you think about everyone knows about going into Laplace or going into Metairie or Kenner and all of those options. And we think about, though, that there's such a great amount of resources here, and some of the local businesses would love for you to go try them out, and you may develop a new restaurant favorite as a result of trying something new. Switching back over to Captain Smith, one of the questions that had come in has to do with school resource officers. Do they receive any type of additional training? I'm sure they do, but what exactly is a school resource officer and compared to other deputies in the sheriff's office?
That's a good question. So a normal deputy would go through an academy, a little over 460 hours of training. But on top of that, there are different schools for SROs. We send our SROs, our school resource officers, to a 5-day, 40-hour course that goes into the adolescents, goes into special needs kids, understanding social media, how to mentor students and counsel them, as well as providing a safe environment for them. So the key is, we know that over the years and studies have shown that students who feel safe are going to do better in school as opposed to those who aren't. In 1991, I believe, was our first year in St. Charles Parish that we implemented an SRO into the high schools. It started at the high schools. And some of the numbers that we have, the incidents that we had back then, they were a little over in a 2-year time frame. From 91 to 92, there was 436 incidences in the schools. That's just the high schools. They implemented the Safe Schools program, and drastically the next year it was cut by 55%. Identifying those issues and problems and understanding how to relate to kids on not just a law enforcement criminal level, but as a student in school environment, and school rules are different from laws, and understanding those to make schools safer have definitely helped and increased or lowered actually the number of incidences in schools. So yes, we send them to a 40-hour school, and then beyond that, there is another 3-day advanced course that gets a lot more detailed into specific aspects. Of course, we also do a lot of active shooter training for school response. That is the main focus for us, is saving lives, and we do that at least once a year. We try to do a big scale operation to respond to schools to save lives.
And I know the students and families and parents all appreciate the efforts to keep our schools safe, and that's definitely a collaborative effort amongst the schools, sheriff's office, parish, and it takes certainly a team effort in that regard. Staying on, go ahead.
We incorporate fire, EMS, all the
First responders, absolutely.
Everyone is involved in this. It is a huge collaborative effort.
And it goes to show how much there is a vested interest in the safety of schools. And unfortunately, though, there are times in which folks do some things, get in trouble, and that brings us, why is it always trouble that leads us back to Judge Lemon? I'm not sure, but I mean, that's the role of judge, trying to help people navigate and make better decisions in the future. How does one become a judge? Do you have to, I assume you have to be an attorney, but how does that come about?
So it varies from state to state what's required, but in Louisiana you have to, when I became a judge, the rule was you had to have practiced law for at least 5 years before running for judge. Since then, it has changed, and for the higher courts, the Supreme Court and the appellate court, you have to be a lawyer for 10 years before you become a judge, and for a district judge, 8 years. And I mean, that's the basic answer. Is there anything more specific than that?
Well, I mean, this is just one of the questions that come in. I know that being a judge is a great responsibility for society, and I know the judges do a great work along with all of the law enforcement folks as well. Staying with you for a moment, Judge Lemon, I know that you get along with everyone, but do you ever disagree with those juries that on those 50 grand and higher cases?
So or in the criminal cases. So there's a distinction on whether I disagree myself or what the law allows me to do if I disagree. There may be times, and it doesn't happen very often. Let me start by saying every time I have a jury trial, by the end of the trial, my faith in our system is renewed. Jurors take their job seriously. They're being inconvenienced. They have to arrange child care, job, taking time off from work or everything, and they get paid a whole $35 a day to serve on a jury. I don't think anybody would voluntarily do that to get paid $35 a day. But sometimes people worry like, oh, they're not going to understand or this or that. They pay attention and they take their job seriously. And in the big criminal cases, which I've had several in the recent past, they feel horrible. I mean, they really take it to heart. And so it really gives me faith in our system and in our community. So I'm grateful for that. Sometimes what the law allows me to do is this. It's not just whether I disagree, but it's whether a reasonable mind, whether it was what their decision was reasonable. So there may have been possibilities and I just disagree with it and say, I wouldn't have done this, I would have done that. But if it's still a reasonable decision on their part, I can't touch it. So sometimes I may disagree with something, like an amount in a civil case. They may award somebody damages and it may be $75,000 and I think, wow, that should have been $50,000. Or, I mean, to get a jury trial, they have to say the case and kind of prove that the case may be worth more than that. But sometimes in jury trials, they may give zero when they say it's worth 50, but they decide that the person they sued wasn't at fault or their injuries weren't related. And there are a lot of other ways. There are class actions and this and that, but I'm trying to simplify it. But unless I think that they didn't come to a reasonable conclusion, or maybe it was something they didn't understand or something, I leave it alone. I'm required to leave it alone. There's only been maybe 2 times in the 9 years I've been a judge that I have overturned a jury in some way. One was a case where a certain amount was awarded and I changed the amount. So that's not changing whether there was liability, but just the amount. And I can't remember the other one offhand, but I know there's been 2. So it's really, like I said, they're pretty spot on usually.
And that's, as you mentioned, part of the beauty of our justice system, and having the input of fellow citizens is certainly helpful in that regard. And it takes some of the pressure off the judges as well, in knowing that there's usually a 12-person panel making those big decisions. But a lot of folks end up in court because, Captain Smith, they get arrested. What are some of the reasons or leading causes of arrest in St. Charles Parish, and to what extent is substance use, opiates, etc., connected with arrest here in St. Charles Parish?
Again, I'd like to ask a question to the audience on this, and just kind of poll the students. What do they think the most prominent charge would be if they had to guess? Anyone?
Any takers? Driving tickets. It didn't take him long to come up with that, but drug use, driving tickets.
So let me start off by saying again, and the sheriff is big on this topic. He would love to speak about this. The UCR stats. So we have what's called uniform crime stats that we take out when there's a crime. There's elements of that crime that are reported to the federal government. And based on those UCRs, the sheriff took office in 1996, and it is increasingly declining. You can look at a chart, a graph, and show the stats over his years. And last year we had a record low, 20-year record low of crime stats in St. Charles Parish, which is again is that collaborative effort between all the divisions within the sheriff's office working together, even with the court system. The district attorney's office, and so all of that is playing in effect. So as far as numbers go, theft was one of the highest. and just any type of theft from anything of value from $1 to $1,000. It doesn't matter the number. We had a little over 400 thefts last year, and then your simple batteries, simple assaults, those types of things, persons crime, possession of marijuana, which I know is a big topic lately with the medical marijuana and the use of, but right now, drugs in general, but taking out drugs in general, just using marijuana. Marijuana was pretty high. And then, unfortunately, DWI, almost 200 last year, DWI arrest. But on the good news, on major crimes such as homicides, we had 2. So, unfortunately, you live in certain places where there seems like there's a murder every other day on the news. We relatively are very good in that number. Your armed robberies and your rapes and things like that, all those numbers are really, really low at St. Charles Parish. And to answer the question, theft and property crime.
And we
are the highest.
go ahead, Judge Lemon.
I feel obligated to chime in, if I may. I agree that our numbers are down in all criminal cases. Juvenile numbers are down, juvenile arrests and other arrests. And I think a big part of it is the collaboration between the school system, the parish government who funds some of the programs that the court provides, the sheriff's department. It really is a true collaboration in this parish, and I think it's unique. I'm not saying we're the only ones who do it, but it's unique to see that, and it's so refreshing. And also the programs that have been provided through the collaboration, our drug court program, mental health services, including substance abuse treatment. We're starting to get deeper into the trauma, a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of the root causes of it. What we're learning is that, first of all, it's until this is pointed out, a lot of people don't realize this, but almost everybody who goes to jail is going to get out of jail at some point. And so what happens when they get out? And so all disciplines are forward thinking on that now is let's provide more services. And so that's working, and that's part of why the numbers are down. So
And St. Charles Parish is known, as I'm sure you've heard, as the parish of plenty, and there's many resources available. And part of that parish of plenty mentality is leaders in the community, such as these folks and others, are very active in trying to figure out long-term solutions and not just reacting to a problem, but creating proactive strategies in order to make this even a better place to live and to work and to grow our families.
And I might add, Dr. Eric, if you don't know, is one of the leaders of one of the resource providers in our community for the type of treatment, substance abuse, especially for juveniles, and other things for adults, co-parenting and other counseling services. And so that's part of the collaboration that I didn't mention.
Thank you for that plug. We're going to take the $35 and go to one of the local restaurants for lunch. That was really nice. Mr. Cochran, and we're beginning to wind down here. There's a question that had come in about streetlights on highways, and particularly Bayou Gauche Road and maybe some other local neighborhoods. What do you want the students to know in regards to how a traffic light comes about, or what keeps a traffic light from being put into place?
Traffic lights or street lights?
I'm sorry, street lights.
Traffic lights is a whole different animal.
Yeah, street lights.
Street lighting is fairly simple. It's the public, they get with their councilman or get with the administration, and we evaluate it. There's a cost associated with putting poles and such along a long road as Bayou Gauche, but it all can be done. It just costs money. And how much we want to spend to improve the safety out there. Safety is is a big factor. So it's not really hard to do. It really isn't.
And I know that that's all part of safety and as far as in our communities, and that's been a common theme throughout our discussion this evening. Mr. Austin, back with the hospitals, what would you say, and I know you talked a little bit about the healthcare industry and the expansion of it, if our students here are trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to do in the healthcare industry, is there a particular shortage, whether that's nursing or some other area, what would you recommend in regards to the greatest employment need for hospital settings?
Sure, no, that's another good question. Overall, in our region, there is a great nursing shortage. Really, across the country, there continues to be a shortage of nurses. And so that's an area where we need to continue to invest to be able to grow the nursing population. We're very blessed at our hospital where it's not a huge problem. We've got a lot of nurses that have been here for 10, 15, 20 years at the hospitals. We have relatively low turnover. We do have some pockets of areas where we need help. Like I mentioned, techs. That's an area, well, imaging techs, lab techs, physicians. We continue to recruit primary care physicians, psychiatrists, some areas that are hard to fill. But my advice would be to spend some time shadowing certain areas that you may be interested in. We offer junior volunteer opportunities at the hospital for students to come and shadow different areas and just kind of watch and see. And then once you figure out an area that you may be interested in, work with your counselors at the school, figure out what type of, post high school education you would need to explore that option, and then just to kind of continue to see where life leads you. I wanted to be a physician. I wanted to be a doctor like my dad. My dad's a cardiologist in Birmingham, Alabama, and ended up trying to go to medical school. Life had a different plan, and instead I ended up being in healthcare administration. And most healthcare administrators are baby boomers. No offense to the baby boomers, but they're aging out as well, so there's a lot of opportunity.
Who was he looking at? I'm not sure, but
there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity in administration as well. So
I mean, there's only one thing better than being a doctor, and that's being the boss of doctors. Is that right? So
that's what I tell my dad.
Okay.
Dr. Deshawn, if
yes.
I could just add to that, Mr. Austin talked about seeing your counselor, but I want you to also consider the Satellite Center. There are so many opportunities in patient care and career exploration around the health sciences. You have a great opportunity to explore all kinds of careers around the medical field and the health field. And if you schedule wisely during your senior year, you will be able to go to the Satellite Center. For the past few years, we have had to have a lottery for those particular courses. So there is a lot of interest, but if you are interested, that is a pathway. Those are some areas that I would strongly suggest for you.
Thank you for that follow-up response. And Superintendent, we are going to wind down and finish with you right here. In regards to, we talked about various different careers, but some of these folks may still want to keep that passion of education and be a teacher, maybe even here in St. Charles in the future. How does teacher salary and pay raises, how does that come about?
Thank you for that question, and I'm
sure the students pose that question, not the teachers that are here, but...
Well, I was going to comment that the students are wise beyond their years, because those are very adult conversations that we have been having, not only in St. Charles Parish, but around the nation. You have noticed that teachers are walking out for higher salaries, and so we also look at teacher salaries. The teaching profession is a profession that is so honorable and so needed. I don't think there is much of a debate as far as do teachers deserve higher salaries. That is just a given. As we determine teacher salaries, and I want to say that in St. Charles Parish, we are among the top 5 in Louisiana for the highest teacher salaries. In order to increase teacher salaries, what do you have to have? Money. That's exactly correct. And so as we look at our budget, we always look at, is there sustainable funding over the years that if we give a teacher's salary, we can continue to sustain that over the years? Many districts have found themselves in this predicament. They have some extra money in their fund, and so they give teachers an increase in salary. But the next year, they don't have that same money as a fund balance, and so they find themselves in a situation where they have to lay off or they are on the verge of bankruptcy. And there are districts in Louisiana that are finding themselves in that situation. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that for your birthday, somebody gives you an extra $100. So you have an extra $100 cash, right? And so you have to make a decision on whether you want to get a one-time purchase for that $100, or you want to purchase, say, a new cell phone with a fee that you have to pay monthly, and that fee is an extra $50 a month. Which one are you going to take? The one time, because you need to have an income in order to pay that $50 fee each month. That's the same situation that the school system finds itself in. One of the questions that has been asked is, you're not giving teachers a salary increase, but you just built a huge performing arts center. The Performing Arts Center was built because of a bond issue of one-time funds. And when you pass a bond issue, you can only use bond issue funds for that particular reason that you pass the bond issue for. So yes, we have a beautiful facility that we have used one-time funds to construct. Now, having said that, we continue to look for opportunities to give our teachers raises because, yes, they deserve that. What the school system and the school board has done so they don't find themselves in financial difficulty is when they have some additional money, they do give teachers a one-time payment. And I have information in the past 3 years. In 2016-17 and 2017-18, all employees received a $1,000 one-time payment. That doesn't add to their salary, so we can use those one-time funds for one-time payments. The last time our teachers got a raise was in the 2014-15 school year, where there was a $1,200 raise given to all employees. Now, the last thing I want to say is that you may have heard that our Governor, John Bell Edwards, as well as our State Superintendent, John White, have agreed that teachers deserve a salary increase. So we are hoping, we are looking at the state to see if they are in a position to come forward with that funding so that we can give teachers a raise. And the school board continues to look for opportunities as well.
All right, let's give a round of applause to our panel folks this evening. I'd also like to take a moment to say a special thank you to Ms. Stevie Crevetta with the St. Charles Parish Public Schools. She's right back here for helping get this arranged, along with St. Charles Rotary Club longtime member, Jim Hooper, for being our liaison to the schools and Interact, and we appreciate that very much. And for everyone for being with us this evening. From what I understand, there will be pizza and refreshments. Is that correct? Is it here? All right. So, with that said, thank you very much.
Yeah, if I could just say one thing before we leave tonight. Students, I know you are interested. Ms. Cravetta got 3 pages of questions from you, and we probably answered between 10 and 15 questions tonight, perhaps. So you may be wondering, what about those other questions that we had? Some of those questions are school-based decisions, and so I have taken the opportunity to send those particular questions back to Principal Madair and Principal Lumar, and they have promised to get with you to answer those school-based questions that you have posed. And the final thing I want to say is I am so proud of all of you for being in the Interact Club and for also demonstrating that you are involved citizens and interested in what we do in St. Charles Parish. You asked some very thoughtful questions, and I applaud you for your participation. So thank you, students.
Also like to thank Eric. He's been our moderator for several years now, and he just does a wonderful job. If I was up here, we'd all have left about a half an hour ago. So I do thank you for that. So, and then you guys as well.
Can I challenge the students? I think this forum is great and informative, and it seems like the numbers are going down. I'm not knocking anybody in this room. How many people in here are seniors? Okay. Those of you who are seniors and everybody else, I'm going to challenge y'all to go back and tell them what they missed. And those of you who aren't seniors, I'm going to challenge y'all to each get at least 10 more people to come back next year. Because this is an opportunity for all of y'all. Talk to your teachers. Tell them to give you extra credit. Tell them to give you an A for coming. Sell it to the teachers. So, thank you.
Negotiation goes a long way. With that said, we are dismissed. I hope you're able to stay around and enjoy some refreshments.